Hello again, and welcome to What That Means Is. This is series 2, and this is episode 6. And today we want to talk about free speech. It might sound a little redundant to you, but it is not. This is an important topic. And I'd like to start today by talking about a story that we were made aware of some time ago. And it's online. It's an interview that Dennis Prager did with a young woman in her late 20s now by the name of Yomi Park. And I think Park is now her married name, and she's married and has a child in the States.
And we'll provide the link to that interview in the ribbon.
Stunning story, riveting. This woman escaped from North Korea. And in the interview, you'll hear Dennis talk about, how did you feel about not being free, or that lack of freedom of speech? And she said, we had no word for the word free. We had no reference, no term for the word free in North Korea.
Or escape or love.
Yeah.
Right. So that seems like a stark story, but it is a springboard into why freedom of speech is so important, why this topic is so important. So we want to talk about that a little bit. So welcome, Chris. Welcome, Ken.
Thank you.
And off we go to the races and talking about something that we simply must preserve in this country. Freedom of speech, I'm going to start off by saying, is so important because if you don't have freedom of speech, you don't have freedom.
That's true.
Absolutely.
And what a lot of people don't understand is that speech forms the fundamental part of thought.
Yeah.
And so just like this young lady Rosalie was talking about earlier, when Dennis Prager asked her, well, how did you feel about escaping from North Korea? She said, we had no word for escape. I didn't know I was escaping. I was just hungry. And there was food on the other side of the river, which happened to
smell
be... She could smell the food.
Yeah.
So she went across. It wasn't until some time later that she discovered there were words like freedom and escape and thought and love.
And how we were reminded about that story was because you said people don't start to pursue it. It doesn't really tweak people until they start becoming desperate. That whole idea of freedom of speech.
With nothing left to lose.
Right.
Nothing left to lose, right.
Which is probably one of the most dangerous people you ever want to meet, is someone who has nothing to lose.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. That's when we're watching these uprisings in different countries. Mind you, none of it's on the mainstream media, but there are millions of people around the world that are protesting and tearing down their governments, and they are the most dangerous people because they've got nothing left to lose.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas when we can still go home, have a nice meal, watch TV, whatever, we're not there yet.
And travel to our condos in other countries or whatever, and all the power to that. That's wonderful. That's the way it should be. But when that's not constricted, when you don't have to really compromise, when you don't have to give anything up, sometimes, and I think a lot of people still don't know what is in jeopardy here in this country. Mm-hmm. And that's worrisome because it is definitely slowly but surely being pulled away. C11, anyone?
And many other things.
And many other things.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what? I know it's perhaps tired to quote from the book 1984, but one of the things that they said was the people were distracted by beer, and I think they said football. And do you feel like we're being distracted with beer and football, or in ancient Roman days it was bread and circuses?
Mm-hmm.
The Colosseum.
That's how they distracted the people.
Yeah.
So, with regard, again, we want to talk about free speech because free speech isn't just your ability to shoot off your mouth about the football game or what you think should have happened. Freedom of speech is the key to thought and understanding concepts and understanding alternatives. And it's like what we saw, Chris was talking about earlier, just before we started filming, about science and how they corrupted science by stopping, right?
Right.
Stopping the debate, free debate.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, I think a lot of free speech is starting to be inhibited by this whole hate speech thing.
And woke
All
speech.
the hate speech. You can't say this word because when you say that, that's what you mean. This is what you mean. Now, this is something. I was thinking about this earlier. The people that are the ones that are most apprised to this or sensitive to this are people who lived at one point in time in communist countries, in places where there was totalitarian governments, or in environments where you couldn't speak, where you couldn't say which you weren't even allowed really to have your own opinion. Those are the people who come into this scenario and who smell the rat because they're tuned into it, because they were raised in it, they lived in it, they know the environment, they know the speech, they know the restrictions, they can smell it. And we need to listen to those people. We really do. And those of us who've been raised in Canada or in, the free speaking or the free countries, the Western world, who've born into it, we can't tell the signs. We don't know the signs.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you something. If anybody has been raised in a cult, for example, or a legalistic religious environment, for example, you're already a little bit more sensitized to this kind of thing, and you can sniff it out. Believe me, I know of what I speak. And so it does make me nervous as well, right from the onset of all of this stuff. I had a nose for it, and a lot of people have. Yeah. And you need to be careful. And honestly, ladies and gentlemen, those of you, especially some of the younger people, and I'm not picking on you, but you haven't necessarily been in that environment, you need to pay some attention to people who are, raising this, like ringing the alarm bells. You need to pay attention.
And screaming at you, you can't say this, you can't say that.
Yeah.
Oh, you have to say this.
Right.
There's a compelled speech law in Canada. Just ask Dr. Jordan Peterson about that. Where they say you must say this, you must say that. You have a prime minister that calls you because you have a disagreement, a misogynist, I can't remember the other things he called you, bigots, and then they threatened you. He threatened you in that speech, which was in Quebec, where he said, we'll have to decide what we're going to do with those unacceptable people.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
There's no place for those people in this country.
What does that mean?
Yeah. And speaking of Jordan Peterson, I did think about that as well too. He came into the spotlight because he took a stand at forced speech.
Compelled speech.
Compelled speech.
Right.
Which tells you the fact that he came into the limelight the way that people grabbed onto that. That tells you where people are at for the most part. Majority of people that we don't want to be told how to speak, how to express ourselves, because it doesn't just go, it goes beyond freedom of speech. They want to tell you how to think. This is what they're trying to do in schools too, ladies and gentlemen. They want to tell you.
Well, they're telling you what to think,
Yeah.
That's
not
right.
how to think.
Exactly.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
That's
They're,
the problem.
they're eliminating history. You can't read the storybook Huckleberry Finn anymore because it showed depictions of slavery. Well, guess what? There was slavery. And when we forget about what happened by eliminating books, burning books like they did in Nazi Germany, when we...
You mean this has been done before?
Yeah, many times.
What?
Many times. I mean,
And did we learn? Did we learn by other people's mistakes?
Yeah, well,
No?
perhaps that's why they don't want you to learn history anymore. It's too, it's too frightening to learn history. I think it's one of the things they're telling you. But you have to know history. You have to know those things in order to know what to watch out for, and so that it doesn't happen again. And when I was a young boy growing up, and we were still talking about World War I in those days, believe it or not, and what they used to say was, lest we forget.
Yeah.
Right.
And we're forgetting, folks. And you know what? The government's compelling you to forget. They're legislating you to forget. They're telling you what you have to believe in. If you don't, you're a somethingist, misogynist, racist.
Yeah.
They've told us for generations now that diversity is our strength. And I believe it is, but it's not just diversity of religion or skin color. It's diversity of thought is our real strength. And they even use the diversity against you, because if someone doesn't look exactly like you, a politician, a policeman, a doctor, your neighbor, and you have a criticism, you're a ist, you're a racist, you're a thisist. And they've got us so divided up into little bits and pieces that they're also controlling your speech that way.
In the multitude of counselors is great wisdom.
Yeah.
A very wise man, let's set that.
You look at things from different angles, based on different experiences. But we've, it's free, again, freedom of speech isn't just about talking. It's freedom of thought. When the government says to you that you're not supposed to discriminate on the basis of certain physical characteristics, but they do it, and they change the word to, they call it something else. Instead of racism, it's now affirmative action. And it's been that way for 50, 60 years. And, as a citizen, I knew it was racism back then, but, we had certain inequalities in our country, and we wanted to address them on the short term. But hiring somebody because of a physical characteristic instead of their credential is racism by definition.
Mm-hmm.
But you're not allowed to say that. When the government said to you, if you're 50 years of age and older, or if you're a native Canadian, you're allowed to take the shot, that's racism.
Right.
You could have said, if you're obese or you have lung
Diabetes.
problems or diabetes or tuberculosis, then you get the shot. But to call it out on a race basis is racism.
Yeah.
So you can see by what I'm talking about now, it's not just about shooting off your opinion about something, but it's the repression of speech, the repression of thought. You can't even think that way anymore. You know, you can't even question the narrative anymore because you're a racist. You're a whatever else ist. There's so many ists.
Right. And what they seem to go on a lot is the way that people express themselves. And not everybody says things in the way that you might perhaps want to say. They might not use the terminology or the lingo that seems to be appropriate, but they still have the right to express themselves in whatever language. They have the right. And you know, if you're in conversation, you might say, well, yeah, I see what you're saying, but you might want to say it in this kind of way. It makes it a little more palatable. But you don't erase thought. You don't erase opinion. The other thing I was just going to say, based on a little bit backing up to what you're saying, you're talking about remembering. We have to remember the lessons of the past. You know, prosperity is a good thing. It's a great thing. We love it, and more of it all over the world. But prosperity is a great eraser of memory sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
It is kind of a cause to, there's, you know, amnesia can start to set in from prosperity.
Yeah. It's not just that. But you're not afraid to lose something that you don't have. And if you're afraid to lose something, it's a tool they can use against you. You know, if you were raised as I was with 9 brothers and sisters in a house without running water, 700 square foot house with 3 bedrooms, I know what it's like. You know, I know what it's like to be that. And thank goodness I'm not living like that anymore. It was the best my parents could do, but I understand it, and so I'm not afraid. You can't use it against me. But someone who's never had hardship, someone that's always been warm and had the newest clothes and the newest cell phone and stuff, that's a tool they can use against you.
Right.
That's another tool in this freedom of
Exactly.
speech. It's not obvious because it's not speech per se, but it still is, and they use that against you.
Well, I'd be interested to hear what you have to say about this, Chris, but I do want to say before you say anything that I, myself, walked barefoot in snowshoes uphill both ways to school. That was my hardship.
Well, you had a baked potato you carried for your hands to stay warm, didn't you? And then you ate it for
And
lunch.
that as well. That's right.
Yeah, I remember that.
I'm sorry. I always feel like saying that when Ken talks about
They used
the
to
way
pass
grew
you
up.
going uphill. 'Cause we went to different schools together. But the big thing that I've noticed in the last few years, I can't even remember when this started, is when you say something and somebody would say, that's offensive. Shuts you down.
Yeah.
Shuts
Yeah.
you down. For me, I'm retired.
Yeah.
So didn't shut me down as much, but for somebody in a workplace or something like that, shut them down.
Interesting.
And that, the whole offensive thing, really, you're offended, Buttercup? Like,
Yeah.
get over it. Like,
Yeah.
that's life. But that comes from just what you said, Ken. The person growing up never needing for anything, spoiled as anything, which Canadians are spoiled people. We're spoiled. We can figure out a way to get whatever we want, legally in most cases. And so if you go through life and you're never told no, and then all of a sudden reality hits at 21 and somebody says, oh, you can't do that, or you didn't get that job, depression sets in because the person's not been conditioned to see the word no.
Yeah.
You were lucky, Ken, you had a 700 square foot house. My dad built a basement and put a roof on it, and we lived in there for 8 years. So when somebody says they have a house, it doesn't matter what size. Oh, you were
You had a cave.
spoiled.
You had an underground
Yeah,
cave.
the dog would look in the window and watch us eating dinner, which we always ate good dinner. But but
Well, at least that.
the offensive part to me is a cop out. Instead of staying and discussing the information, you just say you're offended and run away. Just like we've talked about, debate is excellent, and just what you talk about with your friend for 40 years, you stay and you debate and you agree to disagree, and that's fine. But people leave, and we talked about this before, and something that was said may stick here, and they'll go, Rosalie made a good point there, And the other thing I wanted to just talk about a little bit was, we're sitting here talking about freedom of speech.
Yeah.
How long in our short lives did we go saying whatever we wanted to whoever we wanted, anytime, anywhere, not even realizing freedom of speech? We didn't know these stories about this woman in Korea or all the other people anywhere other than North America, and we didn't know what we didn't know what freedom of speech was, because it was not being attacked like it is now.
Right.
And the big thing, folks, is that once they get a hook in one area, they're never going to give it back. They're going to keep pulling, and the whole being offensive ideas, especially in the workplace, that's got people handcuffed, because that's hitting them in the pocketbook. If they're going to be penalized for doing something offensive, and we've already seen 1,000 incidents of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's what I wanted to say about the freedom of speech.
And they restrict it not only in ways that you see it necessarily, where they pass legislation where you have to say this, or you have to say that, or you can't mention God in a school, but you can mention other religions or other lifestyles. That's one way they do it, and we all see that. But there's other ways too. The government has completely permeated every part of our society. And part of that is control, and part of that is controlling of speech. And what am I talking about? Well, they take care of all of the daycare, and they've convinced people that you have to go into daycare, you have to put your child into daycare, but they fund that. So if you don't do what they tell you to do, be vaxxed, be this, be that, wear this color on Tuesday because it's this special interest group, or pledge allegiance to this special interest group, or believe this about this other interest group, then you can't participate. All of a sudden you can't get child care. And you say, well, but we could before, and you could before, because there were different groups, private groups, that would provide those services. Churches, different service organizations, and there were
community groups.
There were multitudes of those. So if one offered it, and you had to be a member of a certain group, like perhaps it was the Catholics that offered it, and you had to be a Catholic, well, there was a United Church one, or an Anglican down the road, and you had choices. But now the government has cut off your choices. How is government restricting free speech in the arts world? Well, that's a real easy one. I don't know of, we're in the music business, and I don't know of very many artists in Canada, at least particularly starting out artists or medium-sized artists, who aren't reliant on government grants so that they can produce a record. And you think the government doesn't screen that? If you're doing protest music, you think you're not getting a grant? They don't stand up and say, hey, you're not getting a grant because you protested XYZ, or you were at this meeting, but you'd be crazy if you think it's not being done. Who makes those decisions? Oh, Ken, they're arm-length organizations making the decision about grants. Who appointed them? Who appointed them? So they're attacking your free speech in obvious ways, but in other ways that they're spending generations doing.
And another subtle way is they're attacking it, and they're making certain speech and certain words and certain philosophies, you're a bad guy for having that, and they're putting pressure on everybody else to also say you're a bad guy for having that opinion. And what makes me think of that is, we have a song we did. It's called Overlords. You can look it up on YouTube. Not only were musicians distancing themselves from that kind of a thing because of exactly what you talked about, but people who were, supposedly friends completely shut us off. because, we're bad guys if we have that opinion. Because it's a dangerous thing to be associated with somebody who has that opinion.
Because you'll get cut off from your government grant. Or maybe you get thrown out of the daycare. And particularly on the government grant, when we're talking about the song Overlord, that's what the issue was.
That was the whole theme of the song.
The song was protesting government overreach. And there was a video. The song, you wouldn't really gather that from, but the Overlord video, music video, you would.
Right.
But the artists who pulled out of that in the end weren't that they disagreed with us. They were afraid they wouldn't get the next grant. So are they shutting down your free speech?
But all that stuff, whether it's getting a raise, losing a daycare spot, even losing a job, or even not getting a grant, that is all short term. So these businesses that jump through all the hoops to be able to open or stay open or whatever, it's all short term, because once they show they can be manipulated like that, the next thing's coming. It all goes back to 2 weeks to flatten the curve.
Right.
It was just an inch. Excellent example of how this is going to happen.
Yeah.
Because they just kept adding things and continuing things, but they never once supported it with any kind of documentation or real science or debate.
That's the best example.
None of it. So it's all short term. When a guy's looking at his business, well, my business might get shut down. Well, where do you think your business is going to be in 5 years if you don't stand up?
Yeah.
Where do you think it's going to be?
Yeah.
It's unless that person is counting on the white knight to run in and take some heads off or whatever he needs to happen, and I'll just continue with my business or whatever. But it's all short term. My observation.
The most astute and mature that you can be is if you disagree with somebody when they're saying something and you say, you know what, I don't agree with you, but you go right ahead and you say it. I applaud the fact that you're saying it.
Yeah.
Say it some more. Say it some more.
Yeah.
And we can have a conversation. We can continue to disagree, but say it some more. That's a mature perspective. That's a non-threatened perspective. Yeah. It's actually mature because it's non-threatened, and it's
right.
Yeah, that's the way it should be.
Well, always with questions,
For sure.
Like convince me on that.
Yeah.
Help me understand that. Give me more information so I understand.
Yeah.
I'm not very smart. Help me out. Help me understand that, and see what that person can do. Because to go with one of my favorite lines, you got to be able to defend what you believe.
Right.
And if that person is going to say, you can't say that's going to offend people. Oh, really? Is anybody offended here? Or convince me of that. Or the whole transgender push. You convince me. I'm not convinced.
Right. Exactly.
I wasn't convinced at the beginning of the pandemic. I wasn't convinced there was really a pandemic.
Yeah.
Show me the data.
Yeah.
Convince me.
And that's another example of restriction of speech, was how they corrupted science. Any of you know what science is? Science is very simple. Science is, you saw something, don't know what it is, you create a hypothesis on what that might be, then you do some testing and maybe you go over there and look at it again, and then you create a theory which is a little bit more developed based on some experiments and some searching out and debating and considering. And so now you have a theory that describes it, and then guess what? You just keep doing more experimenting, and you find something new, and it keeps going through the cycle over and over again. And each time it goes through the cycle, it gets closer and closer and closer and closer and closer. And that is also free speech. That's how it works. We might come at completely different directions. Chris talked about living in the underground structure his father made, and I talked about living in our little house. Well, Rosalie was raised in a palace.
No,
But-
what do you call it?
Castle.
A pastorage.
What's a pastor's house? What is it?
Parsonage.
Parsonage.
He was raised in a
Parsonage, not a palace, a parsonage.
But my point is, we've had
But that's above ground.
Yeah.
Wow.
The point
Look
is
at
that
you.
you have different experiences. So with different experiences, you have different perspectives. No matter what it is, we have different perspectives. But so just like going through science, you talk about it, you learn a little bit from this side, they learn a little bit from you, you move ahead a little bit more, and it becomes thought, it becomes practice. But when you take that away, all you've got is dogma. you know, we would still be in where Galileo Galilei couldn't say what his theory on the universe was because he was going to get stoned or burned or whatever they did to you in those days. Are we wanting to go back to that, folks?
My God, you know what? There is, I forget her name. I read the story recently. She was one of the first woman mathematicians. I don't know what era it was, but she said that Earth was round, and they filleted her.
Yeah, yeah. Are we getting back to that?
They filleted her because the Earth was round.
Because she said the Earth was round. They said, no,
and
it's
the
not.
dogma at the time was that it was flat.
It was flat, and so they pulled her. She was a professor in university. They pulled her out of. Anyway, it's a terrible story.
Well, you know, it's interesting because I went to a dinner party. I guess a couple of years ago now, and somebody said, "This guy will be there. He's a flat earther."
Mm-hmm.
And I'd never heard. Well, I'd heard the term, but I didn't know anybody who might have some information on that. I made sure I sat beside him, and I started asking questions right away.
Right.
In an interesting, sociable manner, like convince me. I'm interested to know what makes you think that way. And I go back to the curiosity part, right?
Yeah.
And what was the matter with that? He wasn't offended. The person who invited me to the dinner was like, I can't believe you asked him that. and we had probably an hour or an hour and a half of our evening. He was giving me his information on that.
Well, why not? I mean, look, I'm not a flat earther, and I don't believe it, but, you know, I would be interested to know what makes a person think that way.
Yeah. And really,
I'm sure that's what inspired you.
But a lot of things, though, like you say you're not a flat earther, it doesn't matter if you're flat earther or round. No. Does it really matter?
No, it doesn't.
You know, you don't.
That's exactly the point.
That is it. It doesn't matter.
Why should that opinion threaten me?
Exactly.
Right?
All our beliefs can be different.
Yeah.
We rally on what we strongly believe that needs attention.
Yeah.
And go about your business when you're not working on that with us.
So that really exactly, and why that begs a question or begs a conversation. Why then is free speech in jeopardy? What's the threat? And what's the insecurity?
Well, it's control.
Yeah.
It's not us. You know, I grew up in a world where the government didn't control what you said, generally speaking. And you know what? I got offended every day. I still do. And my neighbor got offended every day, probably every time I opened my mouth.
I'm still offended that your principal strapped you because you didn't smile and choir.
Yeah, that's true.
That offends me.
She's no longer here, but with us anymore, so she's probably paying for that. But
so you're not over that yet?
I'm not over it. No. I wasn't even there.
He's probably over it.
He's definitely over it. Shouldn't have told me.
Yeah.
But you're right. You know, I mean, you know, we out of the whole thing that happened in the last couple of years, and people were locked down and they were starving for some kind of community. We started a group, and it was called the No Name Supper Club, and it's growing, and it's 45 or so people in it now today. And I can tell you, I love every single person in that group. People we didn't know before. And the thing naturally grew out of word of mouth, and people came in. And I'm thinking right now, out of that 40, 45 people,
probably 50, probably more.
Probably 50 now. I'm not even sure what the politics are of most of those people. A few, like Chris, I know what his politics are, kind of. No, I don't.
I can't keep any secrets.
But you know, I don't care. And we get together probably every other month, and we have incredible conversations and talk, and no one's afraid to talk about important things in their lives. You know, prior to getting involved in our own little group, like many of you, you know, we'd go out with people, with friends, and all they would talk about is the new car they had on order, or the new condo, or the vacation they just went on. That's fine to talk about that, but not exclusively.
Not exclusively.
And in our new group,
talk about things that matter.
We talk about everything. You know, how
things that matter and things that don't matter, but we can talk about it all.
Of course, you know, it's like sitting down for a meal. You know, I love turkey dinner. The full spread turkey dinner. I love it, but I can't eat that for every meal of every day, right?
And Ken especially loves peas.
So my point is that you know there's different things.
You need to know this.
Not, he doesn't.
There's different things, different levels, you know, and so you have a little bit of talking about nothing, but you have things talking about important things, and you need to have the trust to talk about those other things. And again, the government is trying to restrict that, and they're coercing you out of it, and they're stopping you, and they're saying you can't offend somebody. Well, I offend people every day. and are they going to put me in jail now?
Freedom of speech allows people to engage in meaningful dialogue.
I'll ask you a question about your No Name Dinner Club. Have you had anybody that didn't like to get into the beyond fluff conversations, I call them? Have they stopped coming?
No, not a single person.
That to me is
Yeah.
the most exciting part of that.
Yeah, and it keeps growing. And
Yeah.
I could tell you folks that in that group of people who, again, only 2 or 3 we knew before, these are all brand new, except for 2.
Right off the hop, actually.
Right off the
Yeah,
hop. From
yeah.
the very first night, I think we had 28 people show up. And no one has quit the group. It's only continued to grow. And the conversations in there are full spectrum conversations about everything.
That's fantastic.
And you know what else I noticed one time? It was at our house. It was such a wonderful thing. I was at the kitchen counter, and just for a moment, I just stopped because I just listened to the house full of chatter.
Yeah.
Like dozens of conversations going on at the
Yeah.
same time. Spirited, alive, interested. It was music to my ears.
And free.
Music to my ears. Just the freedom of expression, the freedom of exchange of thought and ideas, freedom of exchange of experiences. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
So it's $100 a month. And,
Oh no, it's way more than that. What is our MP charge?
oh yeah, 135.
Yeah.
Well, you know,
Or at least 150.
and that's maybe something that we encourage you to do is reach out in your community like we did. You know, we had no
Oh yeah, that's a good idea.
yeah, we had no expectation of what this would become. I'll be completely honest. Rosalie and I were sitting around with another couple one night and talking about what was going on and having a drink, and someone said, "Hey, wouldn't it be cool if?" And next thing you know, we did it, and we started inviting people, and they invited other people and more people. It was like a spider web.
You know what,
Of
Kip?
connection.
You just landed on something really important. With regards to what we were talking about even in our last segment, solutions. What can we do? What can we do? Talk to your MP, all these things. But a really powerful thing is do not be isolated.
Yeah.
Go back to that old-fashioned thing that we used to do in the old days when not everybody's running off to restaurants. And I'm not trying to say don't go to restaurants, but have people over. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, there are people, I know people who, I was blessed to be able to be raised in a family where my parents were very hospitable. We had people over all the time, so it's in my blood, so to speak, to do that. But not everybody has that. If you haven't had that experience, if you grew up in a family that people, you know, you didn't have people over, you maybe had friends from school, but your family didn't really entertain, nothing wrong with you starting that.
Yeah.
Have 2 or 4 people, like a couple of couples over. It doesn't have to be fancy. It's not about
No,
fancy.
that's the problem.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Have paper plates.
Yeah.
But
Have
have
hot
them bring
dogs,
something. Yeah, have
grilled
them bring
cheese.
something.
Yeah.
Sit
mean,
down. Yeah.
Potlucks are the best.
Yeah.
It's so the best. And I just want to also say this. I was speaking with somebody just the other day who said to me, you know, I've decided, I was talking to my husband, we're going to have to enlarge our circle of who we invite over. And we're going to mix and match a little bit of who we
Yeah.
have over. In fact, just yesterday I had the conversation. We've got this group of people, we've got that. We're going to kind of mix and
Yeah.
match them a little bit. That's an excellent idea. You be the catalyst. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
That is a way you can make a difference.
Yeah, you know, you want to expand, you need to expand your group of people. This is part of, by the way, this is part of the solutions that we talked about in the last
Right,
episode.
yeah.
But you know, when you invite over, I don't know, your friend over for dinner, him and his wife or whatever, ask them to bring somebody with them that they're friends
Right,
with that
yeah.
you've never
Sure.
met before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And start it small and see what kind of different conversation and preface it at the beginning. If you've got new people in there, say, you know, this is a, you know, we can talk about whatever we want to talk about here. We don't want to talk about nothing things. We want to
Right.
talk about issues. We want to, and sometimes we're just going to have a good time, and that's how ours develop.
Bottom line is people need people.
Yeah.
And people don't want to be isolated.
No.
This is not a matter of, you know, I'm going to bring you over and now I'm going to propagandize you into my way of
No,
thinking.
no,
It's
no.
not
Or grill
that.
you.
No,
Yeah.
that's not what it's about.
No.
This is a part of really encouraging free
Yeah.
speech. This is the point.
Yeah, and we're not talking theoretically here. This is something that we have done.
And have been hugely successful at.
And we met Chris more or less through
Right.
it,
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
And like I said, 40 some odd other people that we're very good friends with now.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, this is something that you don't need to spend all your free time at. You know, you don't
No.
have to spend a whole lot of money on this. You don't have to do any of those things, but just reestablish your community. Your community isn't the government. Your community is your neighbor, your friend, maybe your coworker. Those are your community. the government won't be there for you.
Mark my words, you do this and you are going to meet some beautiful people and you are going to be so thrilled.
And you're going to,
promise you.
and you will strengthen your freedom of speech, your ability
And
to
other people's freedom of
yeah,
speech.
and you'll
Right.
Yeah.
strengthen your ability to talk and about a
Communicate.
subject. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right, exactly. Just exercising even that capability of speech.
Hundreds and hundreds, or maybe thousands of you asked me, what can I do? Last episode, we told you a whole lot of things. This episode, we're telling you a whole lot of positive things. We started out talking about free speech, and that went into so many other things, and it just demonstrates how free speech is connected to everything in your life.
Right. So, what to do? The opposite of isolation.
Start a no-name dinner club,
Yeah.
like we did.
Yeah, but really gauge it by that. What am I doing now? Am I isolating? Oh, yeah, I'm sitting here alone complaining. That's isolation.
Well, you know, I just thought of something on that. Remember, folks, this is unrehearsed. Do you know why our club is called the No Name Dinner Club?
Oh,
Because when we first got together, everybody wanted to make a name, and there was like 30 of us at the time, and nobody could agree.
yeah.
So we called it the No Name Dinner Club, and we just moved on.
And that's you know what? That's the best thing, though. The identity is general. It's
Yeah.
what's the word? Is non-generic,
Right,
or generic?
right.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's a
generic.
no-name
It's
dinner
a
club.
generic.
Yep.
Right. So there's no hierarchy. There's no
Right.
elitism.
No.
There's no you're down. There's no socioeconomic
Yeah.
thing. There's no race. It's no name.
No
it's
political
generic.
yeah,
That's
belief,
right.
No,
nothing.
Yeah.
no, and you know what? Nobody
amazing.
left the group
It is
because
amazing.
we forced a
Right.
name on it. You know, we started having
I
discussions.
love that it just stayed with no
Yeah,
name.
and there were so
Yeah.
many. There was such a diversity
Yeah.
in that group. That's another point. So
Yeah.
much diversity, but we embraced that, and we just moved on to accomplish what we wanted to accomplish. We didn't want to accomplish naming the darn group. That was just something, and it could have been a stumbling block.
Yeah.
But we all decided, nah, it's just no.
I'm so glad we didn't label. That's labeling.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's we didn't label
Yeah.
ourselves.
But my point is on that is that we knew what the goal was.
Yeah.
The goal wasn't to name this darn thing and have everybody agree to it and some people mad and da 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 da.
Yeah.
The goal was to get
Offended.
together and have a really good productive
There's
time.
so many points to
Yeah.
that no
Yeah.
name term.
Yeah.
There's so many points to
I
it.
didn't
yeah.
think of it.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Anyway, so
That's good.
what do you think?
Anything else?
That's great. That's great.
No other.
There's all kinds of reasons for free speech, but yeah, by all means, you know what? It also enables individuality, which is an important thing. Everybody's
Absolutely.
unique. Everybody's unique. We're all
Yep.
unique. Even twins, even identical twins, have uniqueness.
Right.
They're not the same personality necessarily. They're not. We're not clones of each other.
No.
So free speech enables and encourages individuality, and that is the essence of life.
Yeah.
It's so important. So, on that note,
Well, yeah, and on that note,
Mm-hmm.
when we post these videos, often I will ask for comments. Actually, you can always make comments on our blog posts directly on the blog post. Also, I do opinion polls and things in there as well to ask what kinds of topics do you want us to pursue? Do you want us to pursue this
Yeah.
in more detail? And you know what, we would offer that we'll put a blog post up on this, and we will ask you, do you want us to provide you with some more instruction on how to establish a no-name dinner club in your group? And we
Yeah,
can tell you what
that's
our
good.
experiences were, and maybe that will help you, maybe it won't. But I'll put a poll in the blog post when it comes out, and you guys can let us know what you think.
we'd be happy to do that. And honestly, I could not stress it more. I highly encourage you to do that.
Yeah.
It's not hard. You don't have to be fancy. Please, you don't have to be fancy. If you want to be fancy, by all means be fancy. But you don't have to be fancy. It's not in that. It's about the interaction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's,
Just like
it's
it is
the
here.
humanity aspect
Yeah.
of things.
Yeah. No,
Well,
that's for sure.
Anybody
Okay.
else?
No.
So we went from freedom of speech to a
Have-
no-name dinner
Have
club.
people over for dinner.
Have people for dinner.
That's all part
But
of it.
even before that, walk out the end of your driveway, talk to your neighbor, talk about the weather, talk about books, and then work yourself into a conversation.
But these are all things that foster
For
freedom
sure.
of speech.
Yeah.
You know, that is something we must protect in our country.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have freedom of speech, you do not have freedom. Don't forget that.
Yeah.
So, on that note, we thank you for joining us today. And so, coming from Rosalie Drysdale,
Ken Drysdale.
Chris Riddell.
Take care. Have a great week.
And we'll see you soon.